Today I want to cover a really interesting topic. The topic, knowledge of which can save companies millions of money, tons of money. You are very photogenic. You are so beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for participating. Thank you so much. Thank you. And this topic is most misunderstood even by certification body. This question is what I hear most from the clients who want to get the ISO certification. This is my rooster. This is another cat. So you can see the cat better. I think it would be good. The topic is the scope of the audit, scope of the certification. What exactly you have in the certificate, in the ISO certificate or on the security framework certificate. The biggest confusion, the biggest misunderstanding is whatever company is doing should be on a certificate. Some companies who is not familiar with the scope of certification, scope of organization, they're coming to the certification body and their request is, please audit us, please certify us. They're assuming whatever company is doing, the whole company, the whole company will be audited and will be certified. So we have 3 different scopes, and the understanding of these 3 different scopes will help to save tons of money to your company. The first scope is the scope of organization. Scope of organization, as you can see on the chart, it's everything what company is doing. Production, design, providing of services. So the scope of organization is most of the time confused with the scope of certification. When you're outlining the scope of organization, the main part is to outline what is your company responsible for, what risk, what area of responsibilities, and what is the area of responsibilities of the third party, vendors, supply chain, subcontractors. So this is the scope of organization, to outline the area of responsibilities. After, we are going to apply the ISO standards. So we're going to implement that. Maybe not 1 ISO standards, maybe 3 or 4 different ISO standards. And each standard will implement in a different area. What it means. When, for example, we implementing quality 9001 or 20000-1, it's internet services quality, we will want to only implement those management system standards in the area what actually relevant to that standard. For example, quality, we will probably start with the small task. We will start with HQ, and after we will be adding departments and sites to the implementation. You cannot implement standards for the entire organization at once, so you have to start with small. And usually we're starting from one of the key department in HQ, adding management there. After that, when we implement for the small scope ISO standards, we move to another circle. Why I'm saying what each ISO standards will have different scope? Because for quality, for example, it's more important to include the design and development or service deployment. For informational security, it's important to include the security team into scope of the certification. So each standard can start with the different scope, maybe slightly. When we implemented the ISO standards and the company run on these ISO standards 2, 3 or more cycles, when we do the management meetings, when we do internal audits, and we extended scope as much as we wanted from that first step, we will apply for certification, for ISO certification. And for ISO certification, we will apply not the scope where we implemented ISO standards, we apply much narrow scope. We apply only the scope what probably company have resources to certify, or company feel confident to certify, or maybe the customer only asking to provide the assurance of implementation of ISO standards with that narrow scope. For example, services provision or the services availability. Only this part we will include in the ISO standard. While the entire company It's much wider and includes more sites, more departments. The scope of implemented standards much narrow. Maybe it's just narrow for the beginning because we will be adding more departments, more sites through the scope extension every year. But when we are applying for certification, our scope should be even more narrow, because we need verification only this particular scope of the company. And all these three areas are absolutely different. So understanding that, you can have the audit length cut from 3 weeks for the scope of organization, which equals scope of certification. Sometimes then company don't understand the scope terminology. When you only include in the scope of certification whatever you need to include, whatever the customer asks for, or whatever you're ready to certify, you can have the audit length only 2 or 3 days, because you will be only certifying this limited scope of the company. So understanding that, and this is especially tricky for intangible services, intangible scope, for example, internet services or informational security. Understanding that will save your company a lot of money. That's pretty much all.